On February 7, 1965, Christopher Julius Rock was born in Andrews, South Carolina to parents Julius and Rosalie. Little did they realize, their son would grow up to become one of the most recognizable and hilarious comedians and actors of all time and leave an unmatched mark on pop culture. Of course, with this lofty status came opportunities, chances to embark on creative endeavors that weren't available to just anyone in the industry. Itty-bitty desserts are all the rage, in case you have been living underneath a giant cake and hadn't heard yet. Recipe developer Jessica Morone of Jess Loves Cooking has come up with a magnificent recipe for mini caramel apple streusel cheesecakes. According to Morone, this recipe is definitely easier than making one big cheesecake, because you don't have to worry about any cracks forming on the top when they are so small. In addition, it's always a wonderful thing to have a finger dessert recipe that you can pull out for special occasions, dinner parties, brunches, or just because you're craving something sweet. They are neat to eat and don't involve a lot of mess when it comes to serving. Realizing this, Chris Rock set out to tell his life story in a televised format, albeit with some slight narrative tweaks. Thus, Everybody Hates Chris was born, a sitcom dedicated to showing audiences what Rock's life was like as a kid growing up in Brooklyn, New York, with just enough modifications to make it a digestible TV program. It arrived on the small screen in late 2005 and immediately became a huge hit, propelling it to a total of 4 seasons that contained 88 episodes. Plus, the presentation looks oh so special. Meanwhile, what these small-scale sweets lack in size, they make up in taste, composed of multiple layers Morone describes as a playful mix of textures. She goes on to detail each layer, and yes, you will want to make and eat her dessert ASAP, with Morone saying, the graham cracker crust has a delicate crunch, the cream cheese layer is really rich and creamy, the apples are invitingly soft, yet retain some of their bite, and the streusel layer is a buttery crumble. We're guessing you want to taste one of these incredible desserts right about now. Sure, these mini apple streusel cheesecakes involve several steps, but don't worry. Morone assures home bakers about her recipe, it does end up being pretty simple. Gather the ingredients to prepare these mini caramel apple streusel cheesecakes. Your shopping list for these dainty delights includes many ingredients you're sure to have in your kitchen already, in addition to a few you may need to pick up at the store. So, shop for or gather from your pantry and fridge cinnamon graham crackers, salt, butter, sugar, cream cheese, which should be at room temperature, eggs, sour cream, cinnamon apple sauce, vanilla extract, cinnamon, a Granny Smith apple, brown sugar, flour, and for the most delicious finale, caramel sundae syrup. It examined everything from race and class relations in the United States to old-world family dynamics that aren't as prevalent as they once were, captivating audiences in a thought-provoking yet entertaining manner. Alas, all good things must come to an end, and Everybody Hates Chris bid viewers farewell in 2009. This last ingredient may very well be the most important ingredient of all. As far as why Morone uses cinnamon graham crackers and applesauce in her recipe, she says, rather than putting additional cinnamon in some of the steps of this recipe, I used cinnamon graham crackers and cinnamon applesauce to make it easier. She also explains why she chose Granny Smith apples specifically. I think they are the perfect apples for baking, as they aren't overly sweet or too tart, they keep their structure while baking, and they don't get mushy. She adds, plus, they always seem to be available at the grocery store. Cinnamon adds such a delicious flavor to this divine treat, and the aroma in your kitchen is sure to be amazing. This dessert may remind you of a crisp fall evening, but you can really make it any time of the year. Make and bake your crust now that you have all of your ingredients together. It's time to follow one step of this recipe at a time. Now 12 years removed from its cancellation, here's a look at what the cast of the soon-to-be reimagined series is up to these days. Tyler James Williams has more than kept busy following his award-winning turn as Chris on Everybody Hates Chris. He elevated his big screen presence throughout the 2010s by starring in projects such as Dear White People, Detroit, and The Wedding Year, but didn't abandon his television roots by any means. From live-action parts on AMC's hit title, The Walking Dead, and the CBS crime series, Criminal Minds. Beyond Borders, to voice work in a handful of episodes of Batman, The Brave and the Bold, he has done incredibly well for himself. As far as more recent endeavors are concerned, Tyler James Williams is still hard at work in the acting sphere. When it comes to small screen, he has signed up to join the main cast of ABC's Abbott Elementary, working alongside the series creator and lead, Quinta Brunson, as well as talents like Chris Perfetti and Lisa Ann Walter. You will easily be able to follow the process to create these layered mini flavor bombs in just about no time. First, you'll need to preheat the oven to 325 F. While the oven is preheating, you will line a 12 muffin tin with paper liners. Now, it's time to get started on your delicious crust, which is the very first layer of the mini cheesecakes. Grab a large bowl, and crush up your graham crackers into crumbs. Then, add 1/8 teaspoon of salt, 5 tablespoons of melted butter, and 2 tablespoons of sugar. Mix the ingredients to combine them well. As of this writing, Williams's most recent cinematic credit is for director Lee Daniels' The United States vs. Billie Holiday, where he plays famed jazz musician Lester Prez Young. Terry Crews. It may be hard to imagine right now, but before Everybody Hates Chris hit the airwaves, Terry Crews was far from a household name. He had made small appearances in film projects like The Longest Yard, and TV shows like My Wife and Kids, but his portrayal of Chris' father Julius is what really put him on the map. Next, into each tin, spoon a rounded tablespoon of the graham cracker mixture. He has popped up all over the entertainment world from then on, surprising viewers on game shows, lending his voice to productions of all varieties, and even becoming the centerpiece of an entire line of Old Spice deodorant commercials. In the present day, Terry Crews remains an incredibly busy man with his hands in multiple cookie jars. Though he won't make it to the silver screen in 2021, he is set to voice Tentacular in 2022's Rumble, and maintain hosting duties for both America's Got Talent and America's Got Talent: The Champions. Not to mention, he's still all over the cop comedy, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, as Terry Jeffords and provides the voice of Dwayne Williams on Cartoon Network's Craig of the Creek. He has delved into the world of video game streaming with his son Isaiah 2, playing Danganronpa, Trigger Happy Havoc, for a charity in late 2020, via The Wrap. Aside from show business, Crews is an accomplished author, releasing his autobiography, Manhood: How to Be a Better Man or Just Live with One, in 2014, and was a Time magazine Person of the Year award recipient in 2017 for his bravery in coming forward with his sexual assault experience. Tashina Arnold had already cultivated an impressive body of work before Everybody Hates Chris came along, dating back to the early 1980s. She first played Mary in The Brass Ring, before jumping at the opportunity to appear as Crystal in the movie adaptation of the fan-favorite musical, Little Shop of Horrors. She later landed the part of Pam James on the Martin Lawrence-led series, Martin, scoring one-off spots on Law and Order, before, and The Jamie Foxx Show, after. Those choices led her to become Chris' mom Rochelle, a role she retained for the entire series. As one would imagine, Tashina Arnold hasn't rested on her laurels in the time between the program's 2009 wrap-up to the modern day. She's currently a part of the main cast of The Neighborhood, as Tina Butler, and lent her acting prowess to The Devil May Care, as Jezebeth for the episode titled, The Sisters. Arnold's film credits for 2020 include just Netflix's The Main Event, and the William Coakley thriller, Runt, a project that features one of the late Cameron Boyce's final on-screen performances. Also worth mentioning is her role in the establishment of the We Win Foundation, a group dedicated to helping individuals and their families suffering from lupus, which her sister Zanae has been diagnosed with. Tkwon Richmond. Chris wasn't an only child on Everybody Hates Chris, being the older brother of 2 younger siblings. Finally, press down the crumbs to form a crust base with a spoon or your fingers. You will bake the crusts first, with Morone explaining. Baking the crust is the quickest way to get it set and make sure it doesn't get soggy when you put in the cheesecake filling. But, this baking process only takes 5 minutes. Afterwards, you will remove the baking tin from the oven, then let the crusts cool completely. The first of which is Drew, played by Tkwon Richmond, an actor who has been on the entertainment scene since 2002. Before arriving on Chris Rock's series, Richmond had appeared largely in supporting roles across all kinds of television programs, ranging from CSI, Crime Scene Investigation, to Cold Case. He even took on the role of Ray Charles Jr. in the 2004 biographical music film, Ray, starring Jamie Foxx as the legendary Ray Charles Sr. With Everybody Hates Chris in the rearview mirror, Tkwon Richmond has only continued to make his stock as a performer rise. Get excited, because the next step will be adding your next layer, the cheesecake. This dessert is starting to get real. Add your cheesecake layer while your crusts are baking and cooling. You can get started on mixing up your cheesecake layer. From 2012 to 2018, he was a regular on General Hospital as T.J. Ashford, a portrayal he earned 3 Daytime Emmy Award nominations for, and has gone on to be a prolific presence on Ringside, and, most recently, Boomerang. At the movies, his latest titles include Nowhere, Michigan, Savage Youth, and Thriller. 2014's Blue Caprice is arguably his most high-profile credit to date, seeing as it secured him 2 Black Reel Award nominations. Away from the bright lights of Hollywood, Richmond is currently cultivating a music career under the stage name T. Rich, and his work so far is currently available on Spotify. Imani Hakim, as noted previously, Chris had 2 siblings on Everybody Hates Chris, and his youngest was his sister, Tanya, brought to life by then 12-year-old Imani Hakim. The show gave her a start in the acting business, but she was anything but unprepared for the spotlight. At only 7 years old, she started studying acting at Cleveland, Ohio's Karamu House Theater, and took her education to both Alexander's Workshop School in Lakewood, California, as well as the Young Actors Space in Burbank years later. During her Everybody Hates Chris tenure, Hakim scored small parts on television programs like CSI, Crime Scene Investigation, and feature films including Reign Over Me, finally getting her foot in the door. In a large bowl, the same one cleaned out, perhaps, so you don't have too many items out in your kitchen. Combine the softened cream cheese, 2/3 cup of sugar, your eggs, sour cream, the cinnamon apple sauce, vanilla extract, and 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon together in your bowl. Then, mix the ingredients really well with a hand mixer on medium speed until the mixture is dreamily smooth. However, once Everybody Hates Chris wrapped up, she had the chance to explore her on-screen potential more so than she ever had before. Morone was sure to point out that although this mini cheesecake recipe is easy, I think the one way these could be messed up is if you don't let the cream cheese get to room temperature before mixing it, because if it's too cold, the cream cheese mix will end up lumpy. Finally, once everything is smooth and silky, you're going to spoon that rich and creamy cheesecake mixture right over the cooled crusts in each of the lined muffin tins. Add your apple layer, and make the streusel topping so, at this point, you have created your crust layer and your cheesecake layer. She stopped by Disney's Wizards of Waverly Place, for a spell, portrayed the titular Olympic gold medalist in the made-for-TV movie, The Gabby Douglas Story, and even took the part of Gabrielle for Sharknado: The Fourth Awakens. At the time of publication, Hakim's current gig is on Apple TV+, where she plays Dana on the comedy series Mythic Quest. Vincent Martella moving away from the central family on Everybody Hates Chris. Greg Wooliger was Chris' best friend and was brought to TV by a young Vincent Martella. At the time the series began, his resume was incredibly brief, only containing a handful of appearances on Nickelodeon's Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide, and the theatrical Rob Schneider effort, Deuce Bigalow, European Gigolo. This meant that after he was done wearing Greg's tacky outfits, Martella's status as an actor could only go up, and up it most certainly went. Martella is perhaps best recognized as Phineas Flynn from the Disney Channel animated smash, Phineas and Ferb, a character he voiced for the series' entire run. He has returned to the role numerous times for various spin-offs and tie-in media, but he has diversified his portfolio all the while. Martella has voiced Jason Todd for 2 animated Batman features, the most recent being 2020's Batman: Death in the Family, and Hope Estime for the Final Fantasy XIII, Final Fantasy XIII 2, and Lightning Returns, Final Fantasy XIII, video games. Much like Tyler James Williams, Vincent Martella also dropped by The Walking Dead during its 4th season as Patrick. The next step will be to create the apple layer. First, you're going to peel and finely chop your Granny Smith apple. Although, unlike his Everybody Hates Chris castmate, his presence on the show was a one-and-done sort of deal, as he was killed off on the same episode he debuted on. Then, in a separate bowl, combine the apple pieces, along with 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1/2 tablespoon of sugar, and get to mixing everything together really well. Once the apple pieces are coated with both the cinnamon and sugar, you will spoon the apple mixture over each of the cheesecake layers.
The last but not least layer for your mini cheesecakes will be the delicious crumble topping. To create the crumble that goes on top, Add 1/3 cup each of brown sugar, white sugar, and flour, along with 4 tablespoons of softened butter to the bowl of a food processor. Go ahead and pulse the items together until you have formed a mixture of coarse crumbs. Add the streusel topping, and bake when you're done pulsing. Artfully add the crumble mixture on top of each apple layer with a spoon. Now, your mini cheesecakes are completely assembled and ready to bake. But what about the caramel, you might ask? Be patient, because we are almost there. Your finished cheesecakes will get baked for 30 to 35 minutes. How do you ensure you don't burn these beauties? When these are done, the center will look set, but still jiggle a little, and the streusel topping will be golden brown, Morone says. If the cheesecakes still look wet or the streusel is pale, it isn't done yet, she adds. But if you stick to around 35 minutes, they should come out perfectly. And this dessert deserves every bit of perfection. Once your bake time is done, Morone instructs home bakers to allow the desserts to cool on a wire rack for 30 minutes. Now comes the last fun part before eating them. You're going to drizzle the caramel syrup on top of each cheesecake. We're guessing your mouth is watering, and ours are, too. Finally, you'll need to refrigerate the cheesecakes for at least 2 hours before serving, although this indulgent treat can be made up to a day in advance. You will want to store these in the fridge because of the cheesecake layer, covered with plastic wrap, and they should last about 5 days, Morone says. But we're guessing they will be gone by then.